Good morning and welcome to Module 2 of the Humanity AI course for environmental educators. My name is Lee Mallon and I will be your host, your guide through this program. Now, today's course, we are going to talk about framing the world. Now, the reason why this is important is unfortunately, we have to kind of accept as environmental educators, we are looking to change opinion. Like our objective is to change people's mind. Those who believe in your cause, who would like to provide action, are already converted, and we're trying to change the mind of others, either those in power, those in our community, whoever it may be. But we'll get to that shortly. Now, there has been a growing narrative within, let's just say, climate action, for example, of the world is over. Everything is wrong. Everything is destroyed. It's all doom and gloom. There's nothing we can do. Now, personally, I find that a problem because if everything is all doom and gloom, then what's the point in action? I personally much prefer and react better to an inspirational message. However, other people respond to a fear message. And it's not to say that we should pick one or the other necessarily. It's just being aware that both are sometimes needed. Because the reality is both fear and inspiration can work depending on the objective of you and your time horizon. There's this great quote from a gentleman from the UK called Lee Groombridge. He's an expert in human behavior. And I'm not going to read out the quote. You can see it on the screen, obviously. But basically what it says is that fear is a great motivator for immediate action. If you want someone to do something in a very short time horizon, then fear is a great motivator. Fear over a 20, 30-year horizon just doesn't work. You have to give people something to go towards to inspire them for change. Like there has to be a win. You can tell people that we shouldn't use fossil fuels, otherwise everything's going to go bad. Or you can say by using clean energy, abundant energy, then our compute will be free, and therefore we can have more compute and we can do more interesting things. Our parks will have cleaner air, whatever the thing may be. We have to be thinking towards. And to do that, we have to tell stories better. I have been passionate generally about environmental education for a long time, but only in kind of the recent years have I got more kind of involved. And it is an area that is massively underfunded, and it's full of people who have a domain expertise in what they do, and they are typically not great marketers to sell the story of what their cause is and how it has the ability to change. And that's largely because you're also playing against the addiction of things like TikTok or Instagram or whatever the news of the day may be. So we have to change the narrative. And one of the big parts of that is by not making raw data boring. If you are someone who collects water samples because you're causes around river quality, if it's something around air quality or temperature or protections of certain animal species, you collect these data points, which are immensely valuable for both tracking progress and also for providing empirical evidence that these things are being changed. The problem, though, is that data is boring and it doesn't gain the attention of potentially the people in power or the wider community who you're looking to educate and hopefully back your cause. And there's some great ways that this can be changed. For example, if we think of river quality in the UK, there's a great initiative called Freshwater Watch, and people can submit their data, their boring data, and then that data can be represented in things like graphs or in maps and color coded. And that is a much better representation to show you, the degradation of water quality in the UK. Now, the problem even with that, though, is, it's not interactive. If I'm, based in the north of Wales, like, what does that mean to me? And if my water's clean, that doesn't tell me a story of how the water upstream on 3 rivers up, if that decays more, it's eventually going to affect me, for example. So we have to look at this and think, like, whose mind are we trying to change? What is our audience profile? Who are these individuals and what are their motivations? Whose attention are we trying to gain? Because all of these media companies, all of these brands around the world have used social, have used content to get your attention. Now, normally it's so that you buy a trainer or a bag from one brand instead of another brand. What if actually that money they decided to then invest in promoting a cause or donating to an activity because the messaging was so compelling? And to do this, we have to kind of think, right, we have our data. So for example, here's a snapshot. This is data around sewage discharge in the River Thames. And we can take that data and we can generate the graph that I showed, the map I showed you, or we can generate graphs. And that's great if that's the target audience. But what if the actual target audience was you don't want children swimming in the river? Showing them graphs and showing them maps is not massively going to help them. What would potentially help them is a children's book. And what if that children's book was made up of pictures and it had a story arc around how healthy rivers and clean rivers provide a much needed part of the community and something for them to play, something for them to do. And if that story could encumber the names of bad rivers that are near them, or from the data is showing that there is sewerage or pollution in the waterway, then this is something that becomes engaging to that audience. And through that, we can invoke a much greater change. And I just want to show you a little video of this storybook that was generated again in about 35, 40 minutes using AI.
The Thames Water Adventure, a tale of rivers. In the cleaner parts of the Thames, Sammy the Swan swims joyfully, but he wonders about the health of other rivers. Sammy learns about recent discharges in rivers like Stand Lake, affecting their water quality. Felix the fish from the River Wye and Toby the toad from the river team visit Sammy. They discuss the differences in their rivers. Wendy the wise otter shares insights. While the Wye and Teamy are clean, rivers like Winterbourne and Cullum face challenges. Curious, they explore the River Leam and River Wharfe, seeing efforts to maintain their health. Returning to the Thames, they educate others. Look at Pangbourne, says Sammy. We can improve our river too. Inspired, local children start a campaign for a healthier Thames, addressing issues like those in Isle of Dogs, London. Thanks to everyone's efforts, even the troubled parts of the Thames start to recover. We made a difference, cheers Toby. Every river from the Wye to the Thames deserves care. Let's protect our waterways. Sammy, Felix, and Toby continue their adventures, now in cleaner waters, sharing their stories of transformation. The end.
So as you can see from that video, there's a much engaging message for a youth audience. And that is the thing we have to remember, that artificial intelligence gives us the control, it gives us the accessibility to create anything. That video, which very much focused on the Thames, you could take that, we'll kind of go into it in later modules, but you can kind of take that script, you can take them prompts for the different tools, for narration, for video clips, for images, and you could grab the data from your local river, and generate a similar story based on the water quality where you are. But it would adapt. The images would change. The narrative would change based on if your river's good or if they're bad and why they potentially are good and bad as well. That is the importance to me of framing. We need to make sure we're not just doom scrolling and throwing out negativity around our action. there is also potentially an inspirational message that can come through of what things can be, not to discount fear by any means, but knowing where that can be used. Because you've got to remember, like, we don't have to scare people now. We have the technology, we have the ability to share and to promote a potential inspirational message as well. The next module we're going to be working on is AI fundamentals. If you're not familiar with artificial intelligence, this is probably one to grab a coffee with.